Special Operations, Covert Ops, Espionage, The Team House, with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park. Special Operations.
All right, guys, this is episode 86. I'm Jack Murphy here with Dave Park. This is the Team House. We are streaming live. We're here tonight with Chuck O'Connor. Chuck is a former SEAL Team 6 operator where he was the master breacher. He is also the author of this textbook, Tactical Explosive Breaching Operations. Chuck has, 37 years of experience in demolitions, Chuck?
43 altogether with explosives and 37 just with explosive entry.
So, Chuck, we are really flattered to have you here on the show tonight. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. You have a lot to say on this topic, of course. One of the big things that has come to the forefront in recent years is traumatic brain injuries. People are more aware of them, more aware that soldiers are getting them, whether it's from IED blasts. A lot of them are getting them from explosive breaching. And Chuck is a big proponent, a big believer that we can do things better than we're doing today, and that we can make corrections that will keep soldiers safer and prevent them from having some of these injuries. So first we're going to talk a little bit about Chuck and his career. And the first question that we ask all of our guests, Chuck, is for the person's origin stories. Just like, Spider-Man got bit by a radioactive spider, and that's how he became Spider-Man. We want to know, what's Chuck's origin story? Where did you grow up? How did you find your way into the Navy and eventually into a elite unit?
Well, I grew up on the East Coast, and I went in the Navy in 77. And I did, as far as picking Navy and the other branch of service, it just trying to be Navy. I had a lot of buddies going in the Navy, and we thought, hey, you know what? We might be able to serve together. So we all went in about the same time. And what happened was I ended up going to the one spot where no one else went. But when you arrive at boot camp, all the special duty assignments is the recruiters for like EOD, the diving program and naval special warfare. That's when you're introduced to those programs. And if you're interested, you can do the screening test and all the other stuff they want you to make sure you're qualified. And I said, all right, I think I want to do that Navy SEAL stuff. Yeah, at the time, I think, unlike now, there was no literature, there was no movies, there was no common knowledge of a SEAL team. And UET, obviously, I think that was the one everyone knew about. So actually, it was kind of surprising. I didn't know the program even existed. So when I arrived and saw that, I said, hey, I think I want to do that when I grow up. And did the screening test. They cut my orders. When boot camp was over, it went straight to BUDS. And survived that. I'd say BUDS was one of the coolest things I ever did. Coming from high crime environment and all that, growing up. And it's just so, how professional everyone was, how organized everybody was. Almost everybody was still Vietnam vets, so you're learning from the guys that were there and introducing you to their world. And it's the club. They have initiation ceremonies every day, all day long. And are you qualified to be in the club kind of thing? And I made it. And then from there, I went to SEAL Team 2. Did a few years there, and then the SEAL Team 6. And did that pretty much all the way up to retirement.
What was it like at that time? I mean, this is the early years. So you were around when the SEAL Team 6 was being stood up. You must have heard like some rumors inside the community. What was that like? How did you first hear about it, and then I guess find your way into the unit?
They actually, from the standpoint of it kind of trickled together. They looked at specialty platoons, tried to focus on that mission. Littoral warfare was where we were supposed to be focused, and our other counterparts were also standing up also. So it kind of was coming together. There was teams on both coasts, small teams. It was decided to make it expand it. They elected to build on the East Coast. It started building up, and by 1980, it was a command. Our Commodore came in, sat us all down, said, "Here's the deal. It's a program standing up. And to be honest with you, not everybody's going to be elected to go. It's just the way it is. If you go, you go. If you don't, do your job." It was kind of like thing. They gave a little brief on it, and they said, it's not something you're allowed to talk about. It's sensitive information. Okay, and if you talk about it, whether you're there or not, you're in trouble. And it's really that simple. And I ended up going on deployment, and the deployment ended up getting extended. So I left for about 1.5 years before we came back. And by the time I came home, that's when everything was up and running officially. The entire infrastructure and all that. So it was like, I felt like I missed something, but still, the things that I was allowed to do it too at the time were awesome. And some of the stuff was really enhancing when I moved on. An opportunity finally came. You can screen, do they want you or not, and selection process. And made it through that, made it through the selection course, and off we went. That was pretty, I don't know. It was a unique time, I think. After Vietnam War, being in the military was definitely not popular.
Right.
Peacetime, SEAL team, after all that combat, the budget restrictions, training, we trained, but, you had the helicopter truck, stuff like that. And it was like, all right, you're doing your stuff, you do the best you can, you don't complain. Well, complain, no one cares, but our favorite saying was, the only thing around here that doesn't suck are the vacuum cleaners. But it was a really good assignment during all that stuff. The deployment's really interesting, and some of the specialty stuff I was allowed to do, I had no complaints being there. And when the opportunity for screening came, I was really thrilled to have that opportunity and then be selected. Because a lot of my buddies from the command and from training were there. So get to work with those guys. The guys I knew the best, a lot of them were there. So now a lot of us, we all came together. Pretty intense, and I liked that. Everything was real. There was nothing was fake. Everything was real. The way it was explained to me, the mandate, how it came down, the seriousness of it, the traditional kind of safety rules and instructions for safety and governance, we train, we're ready, but all that stuff was out the window. Mm-hmm. It was a whole new mission. It required a way of doing stuff that hasn't been done before. So there was no, we did everything we can to be safe, you don't get hurt and all that, but the traditional stuff wasn't a restriction. And the way that it played out with explosive entry, we didn't really have a range facility. We had traveled one. We never even considered we have to build a range to figure out how we're going to do all methods of entry. We just went out and just started working on structures. We never even considered, I know I didn't anyway, that we had to be restricted to a range. Because if this is the intensity, it's real, it's now, we have to know. We have to be ready right now, and there's a lot of stuff we didn't know. And literally every day was a learning curve. And I think everybody that served will think the same thing. When you're in your unit, because of threat conditions and political conditions, everything's always changing. So you never reach a level of a plateau. You're always in R&D. You're always testing yourself. You're always looking for a better way. You're always seeing is there something better that can make my job better, an equipment, a technique. It never ends. And I kind of thought, okay, when we figured this stuff out, and I don't know why I had that impression, but that it never happened. It just never stopped TNE. But I think you can say the same thing for any unit, once you, particularly especially assignment unit.
Right.
Because the things they want us to do and all that.
Sure. At that time, what was the mission that you were training for? My presumption, of course, is that SEAL Team 6 is a maritime-based counterterrorism unit, but I'm sure there's much more to it than just that.
But that's how it started out, and that was the focus. Have a capability. Earlier in the late '70s, our diplomatic missions were being ripped off, and it wasn't just Iran. Our embassy in Pakistan was also attacked. I don't think that's as much common knowledge because they didn't take any hostages. The guys were trapped in there for a couple of days. They tore the place up. One of the Marine guards were killed, a bunch of guys hurt, but they left. And I think had they taken hostages, because that's the big focus. So they would looking at things, capability, how do we handle this stuff, and that's one of the things I think that they were looking at, because threats kept changing. Just have another type of rapid capability that can go quick, like the Bin Laden raid, and that's what the whole all the components were. That so it started out we're focused on the maritime, but the water is right next to land too. So that littoral environment, so open water littoral environment was our primary mission. There's a lot involved in that. I know a lot's been said by others. There's documentaries and all that, but that was pretty damn scary. What we had to do at night out in the open water.
Yeah.
Is every time we're doing certain evolutions, and because there's no safety net, the stuff we had to do, and you easily can really get hurt real seriously. And sorry, I'm being generic, but for the whole time I was there, and every time we did that evolution, and we only really did it at night, as we're approaching what we had to hit and what we had to do to get them what we had to hit, I was thinking, why in the fuck am I doing this stupid ass shit? This is just as stupid as ass shit anybody could be doing. All right, well, you make it, you do your thing, all that, it's all done. You go back to the team room, team house, and start drinking. Next thing you know, it's like, man, we were some badass motherfuckers, right? And all that stuff. And next thing you know, you're back in the boat, and it's like, why in the hell am I doing this stupid ass shit?
Yeah.
And it seems like my whole career was like that every day for 20 years. It's the things they wanted to do. I'm not comfortable really going those details. I know other guys have. I guess you have permission to do it, but I'm just not comfortable going into those kind of details. Sorry.
Well, would you be able to? You shared a couple pictures with me that I thought were very interesting. I was wondering if you could share.
Oh, sure.
What you're able to about some of those deployments that you were on. It looked pretty interesting.
Well, one thing I know everybody will agree with this: you can never have enough cool happy snaps of you doing cool shit, right?
Yeah.
So that's it. Let's see. The one sitting on the MiG-21 that was over in Sarajevo Airport, and the whole airfield was just filled with anti-personnel mines. So I had to clear a path through the minefield to get on the MiG because I wanted to get that souvenir happy snap. My first trip over there was really to kind of get a situational awareness thing during when the UN was on the ground. And I basically just drove into the place in a rental car and say, I'm here. Linked up with the NATO allies, and turned out there was a bunch of guys from other nations I've worked with, from other special ops units. So, and that was it. So they got me around. We looked at stuff. So that was my first trip. It was the UN time. The war was on pretty good. Collected things I needed. Spent about a month there. Came home, and I think they didn't want me to go back. So I didn't go back until the next time was the S4 phase. So that's when that picture was. So there wasn't any shooting. It was still at the time I was working with Naval Aviation, and they're flying the missions. And what's the current situation on the ground? The TACPs, the combat search and rescue, how are things evolving and stuff like that, get that information and bring it back to naval aviation. And I was getting a lot of information also on, the mines of booby traps, how's the ground situation, and turn that over to naval special warfare. And at least that was what was supposed to happen. I know naval aviation got all the reports because I was actually attached to naval aviation at that time. Anyway, so I had to clear a thing out to the minefield to get out onto the MiG. When I looked at the jet, I wouldn't get in the cockpit, and the cockpit was really small. And not that I'm a gigantic guy or anything. And I looked at that ejection seat, and I was like, man, that thing's armed. And I go climbing in that thing, and I trigger it, man. They're going to be splattered all over the place. So that's why I didn't go in the cockpit. But
yeah, you never want to.
I don't know.
Bar story for your buddies, right?
Yeah, like
I think
you guys want to hear the story about how Chuck checked out in Sarajevo.
Yeah.
It's you activate those things on the ground, you're pretty much going to take the dirt nap. So especially if you're not strapped to it. And so I figured I'll just go ahead and let that one go. I'll let that souvenir happy snap go.
Well, what are the
last one? I don't even remember what I sent you.
Well,
so,
one of the other pictures, it looked like you were disguised as a British soldier in Bosnia, carrying a.
Oh yeah, well that was during the UN days. That's how I linked up with the special ops guys from the UK. Worked with both of their units pretty much my whole career, and more the SBS because the maritime. Mm-hmm. But really, both of the units, awesome guys. Awesome visits over there. They're a class act, and they treat you really good, and we have a lot of fun. But that's when I went to where I knew there was that they were dispositioned as far as their helicopter assets. When I drove in the rental car, and it turned out they had a team there, and it turned out two of the guys on the team of four I already been working with. So that was it. I say, hey, they're like, because at the time the U.S. ground forces weren't on. We weren't there. We were doing the air campaign, mm-hmm. And they're like, "What the heck are you doing here, you dumbass?" And I was like, "Well, I'm a tourist. I'm just finding out what's going on. You have a camera, see, I'm gonna take some pictures." And they're like, "Man, you cannot go anywhere in this country looking like that," because I was wearing American camis. And they're like, "Here," and they gave me all the stuff, weapons, the body armor, all their helmets. And connect me up with the Royal Marines. The Royal Navy was flying helicopters, and we all chatted. They flew me all around the place so I could talk to all the different TACPs and all the different other assets. And that was pretty interesting. Just they took care of me. They got me around. And then when I thought I had what I needed to do, I just jumped in my rental car and drove back to Italy.
Really?
Of course, I had to spend. The Vicenza was where the headquarters was for the for NATO, and NATO was doing all the air campaign. So I was actually supposed to go over to the Vicenza and then get the information there. My one boss was like, "Hey, look, if you can figure out a way to get it in country and find out what's up, and I'd go for it." Roger that, boss. I guarantee I'll find a way. Yeah. That's all I need to hear. He goes, "If you do that, you stay, get what you can, come out what you can, call me, and that's cool. I mean, he was a captain. He actually was a PBR sailor in Vietnam. So he was a really great guy. Anyway, so that's that.
And then I
didn't know I was going to tell war stories.
I don't know. We this is the team house, so we love to hear the war stories. I saw some of the pictures you sent me. It looked like you were in Haiti. Was that back in 19?
Oh yeah. No, actually, that was right after September 11th, and because I'm retired, mm-hmm. and I'm sitting home with my neighbor. He was a non-vet, first cav, and we were just starting to go to the pool every day. This is our second day to do a pool workout, and then planes are hitting the towers and all that. And I was like, well, something's going to happen, and got a few phone calls, and it was really some cool opportunities for work, but I just didn't really want to do some of the things that we're calling in for. And then there was a coup attempt against President Aristide, and they have a handful of Americans that are part of their Secret Service on the close in, the PPU, on the, almost said old man, I won't say old man, on the president and his wife. And they wanted to put a few more Americans in there. And they wanted me to actually work with the CAT team. And so that was pretty cool. So that's where I was. I was in Haiti. And that was on one of the moves. When we could, we'd like to helo him because he was getting incredible assassination attempts, not threats, attempts. Mm-hmm. So whenever we could move him by helo, we that was preferable, particularly on long moves. You know, he's the president. He's going to go around and visit stuff. And I'll tell you that was, I was really, really, I don't know, I was really impressed with the Haitian people. You know, that here's a very poor country, and the courtesy of everybody was just amazing. I mean, they're very, very, very polite. Is there violence there too? Oh yeah. It's like any place else. You have the violent crime area, but the Haitian people in general were just so nice. And I really enjoyed working for the president. You know, his wife, well, we're taking care of them, so they were nice to us. So,
yeah.
I guess that comes with the job, you know, they kind of want to treat you nice. Let's say I think we're up north, up at Cap Haitian, and we're loading them up to take them home. So that's what that photograph was, because he goes in that executive bird, and the CAT team, we fly in the trail bird, which is a UH-1. So we always had the CAT team following him, just in case his helo goes down. We have the capability to secure him. So that's what that picture was.
Yeah. Chuck, what was it? If I can rewind, you said that like when you were at Team 2, being like a post-Vietnam era military, that things like the budget and public sentiment, but particularly the budget, you guys didn't have a large budget at the time or a lot of money to do the various things that you guys did.
No one did. Absolutely nobody in the military had like the wartime operational budgets. No public perception because they didn't like the Vietnam War. The president, he wanted to scale back the military. You know, it was his call. He scaled back the Navy, our ships. Because when Ronald Reagan was elected, one of the first things he did was build back up the fleet. So there was budget restrictions, all that. And so I look at equipment like nowadays, and the technology and what the guys have is just amazing. Because back then we had M16s, or the short version, we called CAR-15, AKs, shotguns, a pistol, bullets, some hand grenades, claymore mines, explosives, and that was it. Forgot a D-cell battery flashlight, waterproof.
High speed.
That was like that was it. We had our dive gear and a bunch of camis, and it's loadout was easy, 2 bags.
Yeah,
but it's all you need to get the job done that was being asked of us, and that wasn't a restrictive thing at all. You know, there was no GPS, none of that stuff was there yet. There's nothing was digital. I think back the NVGs were the Starlight scope, right. You know, the Gen 1 stuff. And when I think it was 1980, I was on deployment. We just received the first sets of the LST-5s, and I was point man for my platoon, for my squad, and to use those on a training exercise. And against OP4, it was one of those big NATO things, and it was pitch black out. And I thought that was the most magical thing that ever happened. I could see. The rest of the squad couldn't see. They actually had to hang on to each other. I know a lot of the operators have been in those kind of dark environments where you have to hang on to the person in front of you.
Yeah.
So I could see. So I was eyes and ears for everyone sneaking into the target we needed to hit. And but I thought that was just the most amazing thing that I could see in the dark, and I was like hitting it. You put on a pair of LST-5s after using Gen 3 and Gen 4 stuff, it's like, how the hell can you see in this stuff?
Yeah.
But again, that was state of the art back then.
Yeah. I thought that one picture you shared with me where you're carrying a G3 rifle with an M203 grenade launcher on it. I mean, that's very that's not standard kit.
No, that was back at the old command, and part of our infrastructure, the place was really, they designed that thing. I walked in, it was already up and running. It was still the early years, but some things were already figured out. It wasn't completely from scratch, but there was still a lot more to do. but the infrastructure of the people they selected for support, and other organic things. We had a full machine shop, or not machine shop, the armors, and everything that they wanted. They had every machine. In fact, they started doing machining. They started buying the mills and all that stuff. One of the guys are already there because the MP5 became a primary weapon because we're thinking CQB. We started out with handguns because water was the revolvers, the stainless steel revolvers because of salt water.
Oh, wow.
And then it really quickly is like, okay, this mission is going to be bigger than what it's intentionally to be. And we need to start beefing up the armament. There's going to be the regular stuff, just like everything else. So we have to stay prepared for all that too. And the guy who made the deal with H&K, we bought everything they had, not just the MP5. So it was, I was there for a few years. I ran all the weapon training, the explosive training for my assault team. And we had these G3s and no one was ever shooting them. And to have everybody in the assault team with a 7.62, why not? So we have our machine gunners, was the M60E, and everyone else, you carried the G3 with or without the 203. So that was a retrofit that our gunsmiths did.
Wow.
And I'm glad we did that, because you never know, because you're all 7.62. That's a lot of bullets, big bullets.
Yeah.
And they're going from a 30-round magazine to a 20-round magazine. It took a little bit of discipline to not have that lull in the fire when you're changing mags, when you're practicing your contact drills and stuff like that. I didn't think I was going to be an issue, but it really turned out to be an issue. It just practice. Your timing's different going, 10 less rounds.
Yeah.
But man, you get all the guys online. It's just a lot of firepower.
Yeah.
But that's what that was. I figured, hey, if we have them, we'll make everybody use them, be proficient with them like we are with all our other stuff. Why not? I don't think anyone ever operationally deployed with them. That was just a small period. We did it. Okay, cool. And we went back to the Car 15s, and eventually that turned into the M4, the shorter version.
Yeah.
So that's it. But
so when you
got the grenades.
Sorry. So when you went to SEAL Team 6 and you went from a branch or a job with not a big budget to SEAL Team 6, where they obviously weren't suffering from those same budgetary constraints, correct?
No, and that was that was the other issue too, that besides no restrictions on the safety stuff. I mean, we tried to be safe, no budget restrictions. That the way it was explained to me, that no one ever wants to hear, well, we couldn't do that because we didn't have enough money. Because that was an issue like everywhere. There wasn't enough money, and it wasn't there. So I won't say it was an unlimited budget, but it's in my eyes it was, because we never went without anything we needed. Budget was not a limiting factor, and it was designed that way. So during a time where the budget restrictions for everyone else, it definitely wasn't hitting that entire program. So, I mean, how often you get that? And the other thing too, we could buy anything we want. We didn't have to go through any approving authority. We just go out and buy. We had the authority to do that. So that was kind of interesting to be that young, if I have an idea, and the way the place was set up, the culture of Dick was, if you have an idea, you set it up. It doesn't matter what rank you are, you run it. You do everything from A to Z. So whatever it entails, you do the message traffic, folks help you, guys that do all that stuff, but you had to do everything from A to Z, and plan all logistics. And man, if you screw up, you're going to hear from everybody on your team.
Yeah.
But that was cool. You didn't have to, but if you wanted to, the environment was there and the opportunity was there. So any idea you had, you sold it through the chain of command, it was supported. And it was pretty much like that the whole time I was there. And things grow, they get rapidly grow. And you're changing with the times, all that stuff. And the kinds of things that they want us to do, really they just kept expanding.
Yeah.
And you still had your basic mission. You still have to do stuff like right now, everybody's supporting all the combat theaters, global theaters. And we still have troops on standby all around the globe because there's all kind of hotspots around the world. So something can pop up anytime.
Right.
So anyway, that's
and how did you?
I'm not real. I'm a boring storyteller because I purposely don't want to divulge certain details because I'm really not sure what I sure shouldn't be talking about, and I just want to respect the guys that are on the duty right now, and I want to respect the guys I worked with, and so I feel more comfortable that way. So I'm sorry if I'm boring, guys.
No, it's fascinating, and we and our audience understands that there are things that either you can't divulge or you don't feel comfortable with, and that's totally fine. How did you, once you got to SEAL Team 6, did you already have a background in breaching and explosives when you were back at Team 2? And once you got to Team 6, how did you get more into that?
Well, at 2, like all platoons, all special operations, we're broken down platoons or whatever, A teams, and you have your specialties, comm, medicine, explosives, the weapons. Well, everyone's kind of organized the same way. And for me at 2, it was explosives and the small arms, and pretty much the training for all the basic infantry tactics, the stuff that you do in the field. So doing the extra time with the explosives and all that, there really wasn't a need for entry because of the mission then. That changed when I went to the command. Obviously, they're involved in explosive entry. And I was already the explosive guy from my platoon. And the guys that already knew me that were there, I just fell right back into that responsibility. Mm-hmm. The organization was a little bit different, but you still had the same. You had your medics, you had your comm guys. It was still that same kind of thing, but the actual the platoon structure was a little bit different there. But it was just a little bit it's the way the manpower was just laid out in your teams. But it's just the explosive stuff was just laid right on there. Entry was part of it, but all the other stuff, the combat demolitions, all the other things that we need to know, underwater, things that we already learned, the booby traps, offensive, defensive mining, how do you get through the fortifications? That kind of stuff wasn't as much at first because of the mission. It wasn't really needed as much as it was at 2. But the entry, that's where it started. So within a year after assigning, being there, because guys were already doing it, and that's when it became a full-time duty for me. That was 37 years ago. And it was kind of interesting how it was because everybody there is already trained in explosives. Mm-hmm. Compared to some other units, it's just explosive guys or explosive guys, but everybody in all commands is already trained in explosives. Mm-hmm. So in a way, we had a lot of capability to go out and collect data, look at things. We were interacting with our counterparts, trading information, trading experiences, and we felt. So when I got there, the guys that really started, they kind of started out that way because it was small. They were all doing something else, but everyone else is just carrying it on. Mm-hmm. And when we started working with our counterparts, my bunch of my buddies, the way they're organized was more efficient. Because, everybody can do it. Everybody's doing it, but nobody's writing anything down. Nobody's keeping track of what did we learn. Mm-hmm. And we had a whole lot of replication or duplication of effort, and then we had holes. And that's when we realized we have to get a little bit more organized. We need to do a better job at documenting and keeping track of, okay, what have we got figured out and what else don't we know? And then how do we be safe? Because that was a learning curve that just never ended because it never stops. And charge design, things are available to you, how to be safe. Because each urban detonation, it's its own separate reality.
Right.
They're not the same. It's not a training facility. You know your training facility, whether it's your tactics or your methods of entry. But each urban detonation in real time, and all the combat vets know this, and all the SWAT officers know this. There's always something different. There might be some similarities, and we learn to see things not just limited on overpressure, and that's one of we didn't realize it at the time, but when I look back now in hindsight, how did our culture just not evolve efficiently is because the ranges. Because this went on for years, and towards the back end of the 80s, the evolving threat conditions, stuff like that, is the need for explosive entry expand throughout special ops. It was justified. Law enforcement, all that stuff. But unlike how we were mandated, the rest of the units weren't. So they didn't have, they had to be on the range. They didn't have the authority to go out in the city. They didn't have the authority to just go out and buy whatever they want in comparison. And at the time, I had absolutely no idea how relevant this could be decades in the future.
Right.
Another thing that we had that was a different. Well, and I think now because of TVI, we never wore helmets. If the helmet we have, the ballistic helmet, can't stop what they're launching at us, what's the sense of wearing it? Because all the other crap we have to carry, what's the point? There was a period we didn't wear body armor because it didn't stop what they were shooting at us, so what's the point? Uh-huh. And so hey, it's like, let's find some body armor, and they start looking around and bust some really nice stuff, but we didn't wear a ballistic helmet till about 1990. So, and I think that's going to be important because now we're talking about TBI and what the helmet can do under the right angles and circumstances, and how overpressure is traveling towards you. That's an issue now. Uh-huh. But man, back then there was no idea.
Right.
And it's something I like to tell everyone because I'll forget. I've been doing this for 37 years. We learned in real time. We saw everything. We saw the hazards. We weren't limited to focus on overpressure, which is an obvious hazard. We could see the other things that were going to hurt us, and not just hurt us during detonation, but affect our tactical response because it's all real. Because how your facades work on a range is not how they react in real time. And if you don't see it in real time, there's things that you have a perfect breach. You charge to do it needed to, but sometimes you have obstacles you have to clear because you're never going to have always precise information. Sometimes you have to work in that, but working manual tools and power tools is also, that's how we figured out the misfires because we're having them too. And all those things came into play because it's not just the breachers that need to know this, it's everybody on the team needs to know how to do this. And everybody was a breacher on our teams. Everybody carried a manual tool of some sort. So no matter where you were, anywhere on a target, no matter how big it was, you always had MOE capability. Because everybody's demo guys, we train everybody to carry a degree of charges. The actual breachers, we carried a lot more. Right. And a lot of the bigger stuff. So that's how we worked it out. Because I don't know all the experiences of everybody. Here's a quick lesson learned. We're talking about manual tools. We came up with the idea of that backpack. And my recommendation is don't use that backpack. Spread out your tools amongst your team. Because whenever you need a tool, whoever has that backpack is going to be nowhere near you. Okay, so we learned that the hard way. We thought it was a good idea, but it turned out it really wasn't as practical as it seemed. Because I see those things every now and then. I do a lot of police training and stuff like that. It's like, hey man, I got an idea for you. You might want to listen to this, but
yeah, no, we benefited.
The intensity of training. I mean, they were long days, just nonstop training, and we really were good shots. And those little things we worked out really quick, and once we kind of figured out a basic concept, we just practiced it over and over and over. We always carried the radios, but we never turned them on because when you need a radio, they never work. So let's work everything out, loss of count. Right. Okay. Almost all the breaching, we induced a misfire or an entry denial, forcing the guys. How do we position? How we cover ourselves? How we clear obstacles? Not hurt each other, because that almost became an issue when first time I saw a guy swing a holy tool and didn't look behind him about bring somebody with that big old horn. Yeah, I was like, okay, we need to coordinate this a little bit better. Obviously, we get excited. Anyway, but these are all things when we really practice, and when we had operations and we had problems with the MOE, that drilling and everybody knew what to do. It was like we had a couple misfires. Didn't matter. Guys were right on it. It didn't matter. We didn't have a charge at all. Man, we were in there so quick. It was not even an issue, other than credibility for the breachers. Like, man, you spent all this money on your damn misfire, man. What are you thinking about? So, sorry.
No, that's good.
That won't happen again.
Chuck, I'd love to see, you have some stuff to present also about this subject, about explosive breaching. Before we get into that, I want to take some viewer questions. There's about 200 people watching.
Sure.
They had a few questions for you.
Okay.
Let's see here. RS, thank you. Alex Clinton. Okay, so this is interesting. Alex asks, is DevCrew's training similar to CAG's operator training course? But you corrected me on the phone this week. You said, no, I wasn't in Dev Group. I was in SEAL Team 6. Maybe you want to start there? Why did you say that?
It's just enough to say. I think things change a lot, and I don't know how information gets out in the public. We were really pretty good at just not talking about this.
Yeah.
But how information gets on the public, and there's just a lot of confusion. For me, I was at SEAL Team 6, all my orders, all that stuff, that's what it says. And when I left, things changed. And this is how it works at the command. When you go, you go. Okay, you do your time, pass on. As things change, okay, it's none of my business. Okay, unless they want me to come back for some reason, it's none of my business. So I really can't speak for how things happened after I left. Mm-hmm. I think as far as the question goes, I think that there was similarities, but there are also differences. And I think all that's came from how were the models built up? And from what I understand, because the original commanding officer at Bragg, he did a tour with the SAS. Mm-hmm. And the SAS were already up and running and all that. And it was a awesome model to build a capability off of. And that's how it turned out. I know that's how it started. And so there was a lot of that. But guys were looking at things, and things were modifying. And how we evolved and watching how our counterparts evolved was pretty interesting, particularly after operations. What's been working, what's not working, and evolve from that. And then I think every unit is doing the exact same thing. When I was in Afghanistan and Iraq, when it started out, and then as guys are coming back and how they were changing with threat conditions, I think everybody was doing that because that's real. And that's the focus at the time. Okay, if I'm there, I'm not going to worry about some other mission that we're responsible for. Maybe when I go back home, I'm going to worry about staying alive right now.
Right. And
what do I have to do to stay alive? And if we need to evolve with how they're changing their threats, and we need to evolve. And I think everybody that went over there in any other combat zone, everybody did that. Yeah. Everybody was changing.
Yeah. All right. So here's a question from Joseph. He says, to what degree was there a real rivalry between Delta, SEAL Team 6, and the FBI's hostage rescue team when you were in? And how often would you work together overseas?
How often overseas? We're gone. The time I was there, I was on paper married. Probably about 9.5 years. And I was actually home like about 2 years of it. On and off, maybe a little over 2 years. So we were gone all the time. Rivalries, guys are guys. And there's going to always be people that just want to give you a hard time no matter what. It doesn't matter what you belong to. Okay, we have our assault teams. You have that going on the assault team. And then the assault team's going at each other. And it's the same on every other units. But the guys, we interact, we work together, and everybody, we joke with each other. We give each other a hard time, but the respect was there. And I think if there was any kind of rivalries and stuff like that impacted stuff was at higher level. Because now you're getting up there. I don't know why they would do something like that. I just kind of feeling that maybe some of that was going on. But the guys in the trenches, we give each other a hard time, but man, we took care of each other. We worked together. I think a unique thing was the breachers. We really tried to get together multiple times a year of all the counterparts, stay current, and we really bonded. All the breachers really bonded during that time frame we're there, and we were together for years. So we really forged some lasting friendships.
And I should mention, you worked with a previous guest of the show, our friend Mike Vining.
Absolutely. In fact, I'd rather put it this way: Mike was he was a friend, he was a teacher and a mentor, and the same with the counterpart, the guy that ran on the federal side. I mean, I still stay in touch with the guys, and they're still peer reviewed. They're still SMEs for me to reach out to, and I don't understand what I'm seeing, anything with explosives. I mean, the guys are just that knowledgeable. But they both of those guys, I really looked up to them. I didn't consider myself a peer with them. I consider them more my instructors, and my mentors. And they were just awesome to work with. The knowledge was just unbelievable. And my teammates, gosh, we just had so many smart guys all looking at problems and solutions. Man, I just worked with some really brilliant people. I was really lucky. And then, because I can't say it made me look smart, because I just am what I am. I don't feel like I ever invented or figured out a real problem. Compared to the other guys. I mean, they just knew what they were doing. And I just a sponge, teach me. And, but I looked at how do we make this stuff safe? Because I looked at when we're making things initially, they're like prototypes. They're like theory, proof concepts. We have a design that works, but now it's a design that's big. Okay, I can't skydive this. I can't scuba dive it. I can't fast rope it. So how we now take this thing, we know it works, and make it so we can package it and do all the stuff we need to do. And that's where I did a lot of that. But everybody was doing that too. So I felt good with that part, my role. But figuring out the new stuff, that wasn't me. I just happened to be around the guys that really knew that stuff and just soaked that in. But getting in there tactically, how do we redesign things? That's one of the things. With my two partners in particular, now we have to make this standard, because we have kind of standard basic tactics, but we need to make the breaching standard. Okay, how are we going to set this up? How are we going to do it? What do we do if there's emergency? Entry denial, compromise. What do we do if we're sneaking up? What do we do if we're coming in? The LZ's hot. Okay, then you have to hit the place. I'm sure a lot of folks know what that's like. So all these different variations, and then that's really, once we had the configurations, then besides the safety, that we had to really, really figure that out. And again, all that took time, but we had time.
Yeah.
And I wanted everybody on one standard with that, because we're dealing with explosives. And there are times that you're signed here, but you're working with your other guys too. And you can also be working with the counterparts at any time. So we wanted to be comfortable with each other. Anyway.
Joseph also asks, how active were officers, troop commanders during your era? Did their role get minimized as time went on? And if so, why?
Okay. when I was there, I was in the Navy. That's an Army term. So troops were boat crews. Boat crews were pretty much run by the enlisted. We had a team leader, team chief. We might have one or two more officers, and all the rest is run by the enlisted. We pretty much, a good part of the time, what we were slotted to have on paper, we weren't always manned. And so we didn't have the full complement. There could have been more. But the way it worked for us is the Navy's policy is every 2 years, officers must rotate. And I always thought that really hurt the command. Now you get the guys in there, they're great guys. In 2 years, they have to be gone. And then that cycle's over. And that was any of the commands. And I never really liked how they did that, because you don't really get time to have corporate knowledge on all the intricacies. So, that was the senior enlisted, or the corporate knowledge. And another interesting thing at the time is you had positions of authority not based on necessarily your rank, but on your experience. And nobody had any problem with that. It wasn't like, oh, I'm this rank, I have to be in charge of this. There was none of that. Everybody's in agreement. Let the experience, no matter who they are, take care of whatever they should be doing. And I thought that was kind of unique, because it's not like that anywhere else. So I thought that was kind of a unique thing that was for us. But the corporate knowledge, the guys that ran the training, the guys who designed the tactics, managed the tactics, were the senior enlisted guys. The officers plan the missions, the officers run things, they do all that, but they didn't. They can have input, but they didn't have. They couldn't just change stuff. They get all the input in the world, but it was pretty much, that was all driven by the senior enlisted, and that might be kind of a unique thing. I don't know if that's still going on right now, but it worked, and it worked, and it made everything good for everybody. When we get our officers, okay, we work hard. We all look out for each other, because we know he's going to be gone in a couple of years. Do the best we can, and then because we're going to get another guy. Keep it all together. So it's just the talent that they picked when I was there. It's just unbelievable. I think that really led to a lot of our successes, and when we had problems, how we recovered from problems really damn quick.
Yeah,
it was really tense guys, fun guys to work with. Nobody mind being gone. No one mind working long days. That was the mission. And it was time for a cocktail. And I guess we were known to have a couple.
Allegedly.
Chuck,
yeah, there's a lot been said about that part too.
It's really interesting to me, and maybe Jack gets this too, is that for us, all we've ever really known of breaching was always the primary role of demolitions.
We inherited his experience.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really interesting to think of going back to a time when demolitions was like what you were saying, or explosives was what you were saying, which is booby traps, taking down naval obstacles or whatever, the sort of application of explosives to explode, and then trying to take that knowledge, or trying to figure out, well, when I want to open this door, do I just put a quarter block of C4 on it? Is that what opens this door? And, this wooden door, this metal door, this door that's locked this way. And now we have so many innovative, and not just with the types of explosives we have, but like you look at a water impulse charge, like taking IV bags and sticking an explosive behind them so the water pressure opens the door. Like, it's amazing to think of that evolution. And when you were working with all the different teams, not just your experience, but like working with Delta and HRT and these things, how were you guys developing these ideas? Were you talking to explosive experts in universities and engineering companies? How was that happening?
Yeah, Sergeant Major Mike and the federal side counterparts, they're all the OD techs, combat vets, Vietnam. Already had a lot of knowledge. We had dual assignments, EOD and SEALs. It was a different NEC, and already a lot of knowledge. And they also had access to, other nations were grateful enough to show us what they put together. We had some police units were gracious. They were doing programs. They were gracious enough to show us what they were doing. In fact, that's how we were finding a lot of our structures, was through these police departments that we had some relationships with. And but the stuff was in the inventory. When I arrived there, they already, because we could buy commercial stuff, where the military unit just can't go out and buy commercial explosives, but we could. So the flexible linear shape charts, copper and lead is what we bought. Other guys were using copper. And we kind of, I don't know why, but it's like, man, okay, it's breaching. We got to use this stuff. Cut. All right. Okay, cool. We had deck cord and explosive sheet. That stuff was already in the system. We weren't in C4, composition C4, for some heavier stuff. But we did initially a lot with the flexible linear shape charge. But then we started realizing, when we started thinking about the insertion methods, something big and rigid, it's not going to be practical. And plus the fragmentation hazard, man, we get fanged. And the copper, you get fanged with copper, it's pretty serious. And it's serious anyway, but the copper will go right through any kind of body armor. Level 3A, it rips through that stuff like you're wearing a t-shirt. And that was really dangerous stuff. Cuts great, but we looked at risk compared to if we need to use a little bit more explosives to get the work effect, like with explosive sheet. We evolved it, we played with it, we made charges, and we evolved from that to make it safer for us. You have a little bit more blast, but we know how to be safe from the blast. But we completely eliminated the ballistic fragmentation problem because getting hit with that crap sucks. Right. And so it was that kind of stuff. So it was the stuff in the system. And other things became available commercially. ECT, which now they think they call it low hazard flex.
Explosive.
We found that it was that was Royal Ordnance was making that, and then there was a company called North American Explosives is where we're buying that, and we liked that because it already had the adhesive on it. It didn't have the fragmentation because the lead also makes lead vapors with the fragmentation, so it's a breathing hazard. ECT gave us a cut capability that we can roll up, get it inserted, we could hand place it, so we liked that. And then the explosive sheet and the deck cord, and they really pretty much turned into workhorse charges. And we had multiple push blast cut configurations, as said, for what we need. And those basic configurations went a really long way for us. One thing I like now when I train police is pushing fluids. Man, this stuff is powerful. Really get a lot of good work effect, but the bulk and the weight just wasn't practical. I know the federal side, the counterparts, they looked, they did a lot with pushing fluids, but again, their insertion was way different than what we were doing. So it's that was practical for them. I mean, we still practiced what we did and all that, but it really wasn't practical for us to use that compared to other configurations. But it's pretty. That's the shape charge is really what we were buying from off the commercial market, because the rest of the stuff in the inventory covered what we needed.
Chuck,
Does that answer the question?
No, that absolutely
really
answers the question.
Yeah.
You have some visuals to share with us to talk about the modern state of explosive breaching and some things you want to share with us and with the special ops and the law enforcement community. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be showing us right now? And you can pull it up on screen whenever you're ready, Chuck.
Okay, it's coming up. Yeah, what I want to show you guys is our culture has when the mission requirement was to expand, and the happened to be trapped on a range. Okay, it seemed logical, right? Mm-hmm. Explosives, range, and guys are making ranges, and they're making some nice ones and all that. But the problem with the range is there's hazards there that you don't see, other than overpressure. And the safety guidance was the use of K equation, because again, a lot of different units, they had their EOD guys too. And another requirement, I think how it went down, the way it was explained to me, was not only were they had to remain on range, you have instructions, your explosive safety instructions. So what was already on the books was how EOD uses the K equation for safety for UXO disposal. And so the EOD guys are like, well, we'll pick 4 PSI and we'll use K equation and figure out where that is. And it appears to work good on the range. And what happened was, as things progress, I think at some point it's like, hey, we have to get in fast. We have to be close. We have to get in fast. And at some point, I apologize if I bounce around a little bit, but I try to stay on focus. But at some point, somebody's, I don't know who it was or when it was, but the idea of using the shield and halving that distance. Mm-hmm. And that's where the real danger started to happen, because overpressure does not scale symmetrically. when it radiates, it's the strongest at the detonation point, and then because of speed, it's stronger when it's faster, and when rarefaction kicks in, it starts to slow down and get weaker, and then those increments kind of space out. And I kind of sort of have the feeling that guys thought with their safety gear, if they have to distance, they're at APSI. And later on in 2011, that was actually a study done on that at one of our services schools, and they found out they were getting hit. The fracted load behind the shield with like 13 to 14 PSI was the average. And and this has been going on for years. The idea, we have to get in there fast because it's an operation. Really started, guys are getting hurt. Okay, the bell ringing hits, the way it was described to me. So the natural thing, I think, was to engage our research professionals. We have an incredible research industry in this country. And when working with these people, it's just so amazing how brilliant they are. But the problem was, what I'm calling artificial environments your range. And what I see now in hindsight from those days and all these decades, and I think this is where we're in a trap. This is what I like to help anybody who wants to know. I'll show you how to get this trap. We didn't know how to task the research folks for what we really needed because we weren't seeing it because of that artificial environment. And consequently, in research, there are also practitioners of artificial environment. In research, you have to have controlled conditions, define a problem. Here's all the conditions, all the control of that. Here's my methodology. Here's my test. Here's my results, peer review. So they're also part of that artificial environment because that's how you do research. And on top of that, they don't have your operational experience, firsthand experience. So they don't really understand your needs. Okay, so they can't read your mind. They're going to look at your problem the way they see it in their theory and their world inside that intellectual trap of the artificial environment. So the tasking didn't come effective. And this is what happened. It took a long time for me to figure this out. When the tasking goes to the research guys and it's flawed, you just set them up for failure. You gave them conditions that it can't be done. Right. And I started seeing this when I was doing contract work and research and seeing it from that side and seeing the test plans come in, because test plans will come in flawed and guys want results. And you look at the test plans, because I'd go back a little bit. Research is also a business. I want you to think about the reality of research is a business. And what does a business mean? It's designed to be government resources working with private sector to figure out solutions. And the reason why they make that a business arrangement is because it's actually an incredibly efficient way to get to solution and with the least amount of money, because they make it competitive. And it's viciously competitive, because if you don't produce, you might not have a job. And I think I see some elements of that too, because if we set up that industry, we set up those people for failure, and because of that part of it too, they're fighting for their survival. We're fighting for our lives with bullets and IEDs and stuff like that, but they're fighting for survival, to sustain for their families.
Right.
And that's a different kind of horror, because when I worked at research and seeing that shit, it was like, I hated that part. Research was awesome, but I really hated guys coming to work in just total fear, because any day they can walk in, they say, funding's cut. Good luck. Literally, just like that. It's that vicious. It's like, holy crap. It's like guys because I talked to the guys that was happening to. It's like, most of the smart guys, you come in, you're already looking for your next job because you don't know your funding's going to cut. So to come into work every day not knowing you have a job, that was weird. And because we're all in government service, we know we have a job. We know we have a paycheck. We know we have, based on our pay grade. We know our family support it. We know we have all these things, all this infrastructure, so we can be focused on our mission. And to be in that environment, it was. I didn't like that part of it. But I think it's important for operators to know, because if we task these professionals unintentionally, if we task them and it's set up to not win, okay, that's having adverse effects back on us because of that vicious competition. And I was going to give some examples and stuff like that as we go along, but we didn't know that when we were on active duty until our breaching cell. We're writing the test plans. We have to manage the contracts and how that community was treating us because of their survival. It was a steep learning curve. We got fanged. We got ripped off, and there's nothing we could do about it other than we could just go someplace else or whatever. But which is usually what we did because there's plenty of folks to contract. But put in that perspective of we don't want to set up people for failure. We don't want to fail. We don't want to be hurt, but we can't do that to them. And if we don't understand that and how we're tasking, then it's not going to be a win. And that not win is going to come back on us. So I just want to put that out there real quick because it's really important to understand.
And folks who are listening to the podcast, you might want to switch over and check us out on YouTube tonight because Chuck has some visuals and some video that he's going to share with us.
You know what? I had a whole different way of doing this. I have a bunch of slides that are going to be visuals for some other things I want to show you. So I'm going to show you how we end up getting in trouble. The first is a video. Just want to let you know. Trying to get this thing to go to video. There we go. We'll use K equation. This is improper training from a range. Guys come home thinking that they have the impression they learned everything that they learned. And this is what's happening to us. Artificial environment, overpressure, K equation, half your distance. Well, K equation's for external detonations. It's only for instant overpressure. And if you're amplifying in an amplifying environment, outside or inside, it's not designed for that. So what happens is, you notice dynamic. You're going to do how you're trained. So this is how the guys are trained. They have a building, they have a charge on the door, and they're too close. They're half in their distance. Using an equation they shouldn't be using. So this is what happens because there's more going on than just overpressure. And because we're in an amplifying environment, what comes off is amplified. Okay? Now I slowed it down. We have multiple hazards. Okay, we're already in an amplifying environment, but the guys weren't trained to recognize that. They didn't. It was automatic. It's going on for a long time. Calculate this number, stand right here.
Right.
And there's no education about the other things that are going to happen. Okay, because we never used that equation for that. Because we figured out where to be with our bodies. We basically blew ourselves up to the point where, some days urinate blood. And thank goodness the non-vets taught me how to self-medicate and everything turned out okay, at least for me. Now, there's other things going on. It's a chemical reaction, so we have that exothermic. You can see how intense that flame came shooting out.
Yeah.
It's so fast, you really can't see that with your naked eye. And or you see it, it's not that catastrophic. All that crap on the ceiling. We have overpressure hitting the drop ceiling. Shock wave is the energy transmission in the solid stuff, the walls, floor, and ceiling, and that vibrates our structure. That makes things break loose and drops on us. The shock wave in the wall, see how the guy on the right here is leaning on the wall?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't want our guys leaning on the wall because your heavier charges, you can rupture organs. So teach your guys, don't lean on the wall, particularly for your heavier charges, smaller ones, you might get away with it. And that's pretty powerful. What I do in my program, I have guys just put their hand lightly on the wall when we do detonations so you can feel that thing. It's pretty intense. Okay, so we have all these other things going. Oh, the stuff dropping, stuff projecting at them.
The lights going down on them.
Yeah, the lights. Now, I've been in internal detonations, and where we're safe. Okay, ceiling tiles can still drop. Okay, the other equation, or while we're here, the other equation while you're internal, the Weibull equation, if you calculate a certain PSI, it's okay to be in a space. And what the equation doesn't recognize, first off, K equation, this is the wrong environment. Okay, now back to Weibel's, that residual internal overpressure is not giving you an accurate indication of all the amplified overpressure and all the other non-overpressure hazards to the team. Okay, the equation's not designed to do that. And somehow that got introduced. Because we were looking at it, and I was kind of using it, can I predict property damage? Because when I left active duty and I built my program to train police, then there's liabilities. I never really looked at the kind of property damage, breaking windows and stuff like that when I was on active duty, because it wasn't an issue for us. At least that's what we thought. Law enforcement, there's liability. You're liable for all your damage. And that's another thing that gets law enforcement in trouble, because on a range, you're not learning how to identify property damage that you're liable for. Uh-huh. I can give you 3 instances, okay, where the property damage was, the price tag was about $2.5 million. Wow. Okay, so that's, for a police agency, that's significant shit, because of range training, they're not taught how to identify that. Mm-hmm. One thing we were focused on is what's going on inside the room, because we were liable for folks, we have to go rescue. We were liable for their safety. And if we kill them with a charge, if we hurt them with a charge, that's going to be potential liability for us. But we never looked at the other side. And because of that, when I do police, because there might be some police or guys think about going to law enforcement, and you'll probably end up being on a SWAT team. We also have to study what happens inside the room where you're going. Okay, what are the conditions in there? Overpressured, projected debris in particular. What are those patterns? Where they go? What comes at us? What are those patterns? And you can't learn any of this stuff on the range. So I wanted to show that real quick. I want to show you some quotes from some research that I was asked to volunteer on. There was a funded project to evaluate the K equation and Weibel's equation to how it was being used in explosive entry. Okay, that kind of started in 2005. I was asked to volunteer, participate, and say, hey, no problem. I think I have a lot to say on this. As it progressed, they also want to characterize charge performance. And when I saw the test plan, it was in January 2007, the way the test plan was written, you're going to talk about test plans, right? It was going to be, they're going to definitely confirm the equations are safe. We're going to definitely know this about charge performance. And I sent an email to all the participants that were the volunteers and the guys that were contracted. Said, look, I don't think you're going to make this, guys. You're not going to, this isn't going to happen. You're not going to, the way they want to validate the equations, the calculated answers, is with instrumentation, overpressure recording instrumentation. And they thought that was going to work, because here's, when you task, they had a preconceived, they preconceived that they were right. Uh-huh. The whole thing was designed around, we're right. Okay, so the wording of the whole plan was already flawed, but also from preconceived concepts that this is going to happen. And what ended up happening, that didn't. Okay, the equations weren't in agreement with the instrumentation. So, and I pointed that all out, and I'm going to read you a little thing. The email response from the guy running the thing, because this is important to know, guys, because how do we get into this mess where we're getting hurt? Because the equations were already going on for years right now. And we never used the equations this way, so I always wondered, why are we doing this? Because when I talk to guys, they're talking about their bell ringing hits and stuff like that, but I'm talking to other guys that were like running training, and I'm not hearing any of that stuff from them. Uh-huh. Okay, the intent of the program is to characterize breaching charges in terms of performance and safety and validate the safety formulas breachers use. As you saw in the contract, this is what's in the contract. It is fairly general, but it entails quite a bit. And I think based on your comments, my comments to the group, my email comments, we most likely won't be able to validate the formulas. Okay, this is January 2007. We may see some results where the formulas may keep people safe. And okay, they're contracted to do this. Absolutely, do it. Collect the data. Let's see what we get. And if there's something, we think something may look like it's safe, okay, let's focus on that. If it looks like we're not validating the formulas, that's good too. because now we know we shouldn't be using the formulas, the equations. So, one more sentence. However, we do want this program to have positive benefits and contributions to the community. Therefore, if you think, talking to me, if you think we need to rethink and rescope this effort, then this is what we need to do. And so I know they're not going to validate stuff. I'm like, okay, fine. There's time, because the product, the report and all that, it's due in December. That never happened. They did the testing. I wasn't there for the testing. And they created, the object two was to create a product, the handbook. And it was supposed to be a for sale product as a quick reference. You know, it was, I don't know, a lot of stuff was already pre-written with the preconceived notion that they were going to validate the equations or not. Mm-hmm. Okay, but it's supposed to be a quick reference for breaches and all that. It was a for sale product. And again, that's fine. Government and private sector or other elements doing that is totally acceptable. That's how research works, and it's a good model. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no nothing fancy or nothing unethical about it. Okay, but on page 73 of that, in page on Appendix B, there's two paragraphs. It should be noted, and this is in the book that's for sale that you can buy right now. It should be noted that while the formula has a story, K equation in this case, has been used for explosive breaching purposes, it is based on data of much larger charges and spherical and hemispherical shapes detonating in open air, and not in contact with the building components such as a wall or door. The results of the explosive breaching characterization handbook test program showed definite trends and indicated that this formula does not accurately characterize overpressure environment for all breaching charges. Okay. When I finally saw, because my name's in that book, I was a contributor. Mm-hmm. When I saw this after the fact, and it went out there, and there were some things to proofread and stuff like that, but I never saw the entire end product that was going to go out. This stuff happened, and on page 103, it's basically the same statement for the inside equation. And I'm thinking, they're not valid. Why is that book out there?
Right. So, now, Chuck, just to summarize real quick, what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is that we're using mathematical equations to calculate explosive breaches that are, the equations were taken, the calculations were calculated based on detonating explosives out in open air, like out in the middle of the desert.
Yes.
And they do not apply adequately or appropriately when used in interior urban spaces or even in outdoor urban environments where the blast wave is going to bounce off all sorts of different types of surfaces and come back on the assaulters.
Absolutely, yeah. Your K equation is not for that. In the UXO disposal manual, K equation, you calculate the limit of ballistic fragmentation as a K factor for that, and you can calculate your overpressure hazard, distance based on your net explosive weight of what you're disposing. All right, so what's that total weight? And that'll give you that outer limit. So you move everybody from there. So K equation never really was designed for our safety on a range or for an urban environment. Right. Urban environments always have something that negate evaluating incident overpressure as the only hazard. And that's how overpressure amplifies, how it interacts, and all those other non-overpressure hazards. So, absolutely, and again, that's the stuff out of all the scientific textbooks, right? The people who write test plans, and they write those complicated technical manuals and stuff like that. That was how they describe stuff. Those references are not really written for what we're doing.
Right. And when you say, when you say UXO, you're talking about unexploded ordnance.
Yes, unexploded ordnance. Right. Sorry.
In that video, when you're talking about amplifying an amplifying environment, in that particular video, you're talking mostly about the hallway, focusing the blast, about the drop ceiling, things that are not taken into the mathematical equation when figuring what the minimum safe distance from an explosion is.
Right, because we're inside this confined space. So the walls, the floor, all amplify that overpressure. So it's going to come out. You're going to get instant overpressure. It's going to come straight to that team. It's going to come straight off the charts. But the overpressure is going to start hitting walls, ceiling, and floor, reflect, and really make a pretty complex overpressure environment in there of strength. And your positive phase time duration under these conditions extends. Damage to your body is really based on that time duration, the strength of the overpressure and the length of that time duration is what creates the positive impulse destructive loading force, whether it's breaking our body or breaking infrastructure. It's the two of them combined make that destructive force. And the one key one that does the most damage or creates the more powerful impulse is when we extend our positive phase. Mm-hmm. The longer that positive phase is, the more destructive that impulse will be because it's acting on that surface, okay, for a longer period of time. So you can get damage and body damage at a lower overpressure value when you're in an amplified environment. Okay, also in an amplified environment, you guys have probably seen this. Let me just run down here real quick. I'm going to be bouncing around, guys.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Anybody's explosive, guys, is in every textbook, all our references, stuff like that. And what it implies is on boom, we get a peak overpressure. This is our positive phase. We're going to get maximum overpressure with time and distance doing weaken, and then we're going to have a negative pressure region. Okay? And then that's going to terminate. And a lot of textbooks refer to this as the entire detonation event, and they're actually incorrect. This is the overpressure profile of an instrument at a fixed point. But what I want to show you on this, I don't have the other graph up. When you get a positive spike, that's overpressure hitting you. What you'll see in an amplifying environment, a whole lot of peaks and a whole lot of dips. And they're jagged. They're not curved like this. Mm-hmm. So a whole lot of these peaks and a whole lot of those dips below ambient pressure. Every time you get a spike means that's a compressive force. That's pushing in on my body. And every time you see it go below ambient pressure, the conditions are there for rare refraction. When I have compressive force, that means it's compressing my molecules that make up my body tissue, stuff like that. So first I get compression, and then they're releasing. And that release is not a relaxing release, because when you compress molecules of anything, a wall, your body, you're spring loading them. So when they can relax, it's a tearing release. And every time you get a spike, it's a compression. And every time you see a dip, it's a tearing release. So when you're in that amplified environment, and like the equation will put you there. I'm going to show you another thing that they start talking about with instrumentation called mapping your environment. Maybe some of you guys might have seen that.
Is that phenomena you're talking about, the compression of the molecules and then the tearing effect as they expand, is that what leads to a traumatic brain injury as well?
Yeah, it's the pressure squeezing your brain because you're inside that helmet. I think because you're in a fixed position. So when the overpressure, if you're in the right spot and that overpressure comes, because I've already recorded all this stuff. Back in 2014, I was able to make my own surrogates and put the gauges inside the helmet where your brain would be. Uh-huh. And I was looking for patterns. Okay, I know instant overpressure because they had that gauge they put on your neck, and they're saying that it's going to give you a recording of what happened to your brain. Uh-huh. And I always had an issue with that. And I talked to the manufacturer about that in 2014 is, how can you say that? Because the gauge isn't where your brain is the back of your neck. Here, I'll show you right here. I'm bouncing around, guys.
Sure.
Okay, so here, it's better. Okay, here we have overpressure coming in. If you're in, and you're going to end up in this sometimes, maybe. If the overpressure comes in, it's going to amplify in the back. Okay, this is where they're saying, put the gauges. And there's other companies. The first one I saw was 2019. They put it on the outside of the helmet. Then 2014, we're putting them on the neck, shoulder, body. Okay, then there's other companies making them too. And but also seen them on the outside, on the back, and also seen them on the top. But the overpressure comes in, amplifies here, and then we get our squeezing. And it squeezes all the way around. I mean, this has been modeled. When I saw a computer model paper because they can model our tissues, bone, fluids, muscle, all that. And the warning was the inside of our helmets, because the spaces can be an amplifying environment. It takes 14.5 psi to cause, according to the model, that can cause enough skull flexure to put damage and pressure on the brain. Okay, so I was worried about that, because here's the guys, the one study 2011, everybody's coming in closer to the detonation. Okay, because they're halving their distance or shortening their distance. It's a little bit different now, but they're still shortening their distance. I'll show you those quotes too. You shouldn't be doing it. They only focus on the chest, and those recordings were 13, 14 psi with the wall charges. So that means what's going up in the helmet, if you happen to be in this position, you're going to get a double, because that's what's coming at your body, hitting that gauge. So that's the incident of overpressure. That means what's going up into your helmet is my ratios of my recordings. The pattern was constant. So what's going by me or hitting that gauge, it was doubling up here. And what was touching the gauge inside the helmet, and what was touching the gauge on the back of your neck was the diffractant load. It breaks apart. And that was lower than the original overpressure coming by you. And that was my question with the manufacturers. Like, how can you tell us we're getting a recording that's going to hear the back of my neck, that's going to give me information about my brain?
Right.
And they didn't like me because they thought they had a great thing, and they actually wanted me to join them in some kind of a business arrangement and help them promote the product. And I'll tell you what, guys, the product is an awesome product. It does exactly what it should be doing. It's an instrument that records overpressure. And what's awesome about it is you don't need a technical team. You can get your own data. It's an awesome system. I've always recommended it. I like it. I love it. I use it. And I use it to show them, you're getting this wrong, guys. Let's sit down and have a conversation about this.
Right.
And they wouldn't do it. They just kind of wouldn't do it.
They're collecting the wrong data at the end of the day. That's what it sounds
Well,
like.
okay, now here, guys. Okay, these guys also, unlike our operators, everything they know about overpressure is artificial environment. Mm-hmm. They don't really understand overpressure, exactly how what's important to an operator. Operators don't know how to articulate it because we're not really learning it right. And the artificial environment, we're not seeing how to understand that stuff. And because none of the references we have were designed for this. They're written from experiments. They're written for all study from afar. Explosive entry is the first time we have to be close to the detonation point. Our relationship now is intimate with detonation effects. And nothing is designed, nothing out there is written for that. And this is what we started learning, because we're doing the detonations in real time. We're studying, we're looking at damage. Because we already knew where to be. Because we learned that from the active duty days, because we already figured that out with our bodies. But the artificial environment for research and the artificial environment for operators, all this is being missed. And when you point it out, it makes sense. And that's why I love when I show this to operators who have already been through training on the range. All this stuff that has been missing, the academics covers, and then we go out in the city, and then we shoot it for real. And we go over the stuff really meticulously, and what has been wrong about this, and why we're not getting out of that. So, it'd be nice if we could do this more than one operator at a time, but
Sure.
But this is our reality, guys. And this is not a precise location. Okay? This is where it needs to be. And now, here are the guys, if they really understood this stuff, why aren't you making your own surrogates? If I can make a surrogate, why don't you I use their instruments to make surrogates to show them what you're telling people may not be accurate. We need to talk about this and understand what we're saying, so operators understand what they're getting. And the field triage and our emergency medicine, they understand what they're getting. Because when you change the angle, okay, if overpressure comes this way and you're holding your head like that, then it's going to amplify.
Uh-huh.
All right, and you could get up there in those damaging squeezes. And the model said you can have damage to your brain, potential damage. Not like permanent, but you're starting to get damaging pressures, and you're not going to feel. and you may not feel any effects. You'll feel okay. All right. If the overpressure is coming from the backside, my issue, and I've already told this, there's that project right now, and I already told all this stuff to everybody. I gave this presentation, and I told all the guys who are doing that TBI project right now, they invited me to come out and talk about the problems with our culture, and I explained all this stuff. So now if overpressure comes this way, now you're going to have a stronger recording compared to what's inside your helmet, because your helmet's going to protect your brain. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a diffractant load in your helmet. But now my instrument's going to give me a number, and that number may be a trigger. Oh my gosh. And your brain's okay. Mm-hmm. So you could misdiagnose or you can overdiagnose. And is overdiagnosing with mild TBI necessarily a bad thing? I'm not really sure. I don't know. But misdiagnosis. Yeah. And it's because how many times are you on the range? How many times are you getting hammered? And think about this, guys. Our lifestyles are already pretty damn vicious as it is. Look at our recreation activities, contact sports, MMA, defensive tactics. How many car crashes have you been in? Yeah. Okay. How many bad parachute landings have you had? How many times have you been knocked out? Okay. We're already doing things by job and by recreation that's hitting our brains. Mm-hmm. Okay. How many times can our brain get punched? Okay. And the more and more we're too close because of that equation. And the more and more you get hit, and it comes down to every time you hear, man, we got to get close, Okay, think about this, guys. When you get that shit knocked out of you, you're hitting knees, like some of the quotes in the article that Jack wrote, guys taking knees, guys getting knocked out. Yeah. You're not faster. You know why you want to get in there fast. But I want you to understand this. You're hurting yourselves. And you are not in a condition to fight. Okay? You're hurt. You're hurting yourself now, and you're hurting yourself in the long term. You still have the same threat. And now you're in no condition to deal with that threat. And what I like to teach the operators is like, let's get away from that. We have to get in there fast. Yeah, we want to get in there fast. But we have to look at other ways based on our environment so we're not taking these massive hits. And I'll guarantee you right now, you're not going to be slower. Guys are downrange. They went through the programs, then came back. They went through we go out in the city, went through my program. They do their next deployment. The feedback was, Chuck, we did all our operations, our entries, no excessive hits, and the missions turned out fine. Repositioning reflective of all the hazards around that environment, because you have to do that each detonation. Okay, I have a process for doing it, and the process is simple. Once you understand how we catalog, I call it the hazard puzzle, for like police doing active shooter. You can run right to anything. You have your pre-made charges. You can do that assessment on the run, place your charge. You already know what you're going to do. Property damage, you already know where to tell your people to go by how you see that environment from all hazards, to include overpressure. Do your breach. Okay, and you can do it on the run. The guys can do that. That fast. Okay, it's an easy process, and it doesn't need a calculator, and it doesn't need a computer program.
And Chuck, I'm sorry, I just want to clarify something for our viewers who may not be familiar with some of what you're talking about. So the general principles in close quarter battle are speed, surprise, and violence of action. So the idea, like you say, of getting close to the breach came from the idea that as soon as that breach went off, that explosive breach on the door, that the team is taking advantage of that initial shock of that breach to get in there, because once that explosion goes off, they've lost the element of surprise, or in their minds they've lost the element of surprise, and hopefully off that breach there's a disorienting effect where the team basically follows it right in and clears.
Our culture is to breach and then flood as many assaulters inside as possible.
No, I understand all that. No. Because we had exec team challenges.
Yeah.
No, if you're hurting yourself, you're not fast at all.
Right. No,
position yourself in a better position, and you may be even a little bit farther away. you're not as slow as you think, even being a little bit farther away.
Right.
Because on boom, you have that adrenaline. On boom, you guys are hauling ass. You're conditioned, you're moving. And before I forget, I'm going to give you guys my email address.
Sure.
We're just not going to be enough time to go through all these details. I have some handouts if you're interested. If you want to talk with me and get more details and all that, there's other things that you might want to do, because I have training programs and stuff like that. We're going to talk about a little bit, but I'm with you guys. Anything I can do to help you, my time, I'll make the time for you guys. I'll answer all questions. I have a lot of stuff written up, so you understand what are the dangers that aren't going away. But you're not as slow as you think being safe. I'll guarantee you're faster than when you're knocked out or you're on your knees trying to shake off that bell ringing head,
right?
And not even focused on the threat. There's no way you're faster than when you're safe. Okay, and it's a really simple. There's details, but once you understand the details, which isn't hard, and because you already have the experience, what you don't have those experiences is how to identify the things that are important for you to know, because the artificial environment doesn't give you the opportunity to identify that and have those experiences. But you already have the experience downrange. And when you see how the way operators explain it to me is it fills in the questions. Mm-hmm. Like, how many times you have an instructor and they don't really answer your question? And it's not the instructor's fault, because the material doesn't know how to answer your question. And so there's a lot of stuff we don't know, but what do? We're going anyway. It's a mission. That's why I love you guys. You're going anyway. You know the risk. You know it's going to hurt. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be this way.
Right.
For the last 14 years since that equation, look at this, guys. This is January 2008, that handbook project. I just told you what's in the handbook. This is solicitation for more money from the entity that solicited the first time. And this is why. The current Hopkins-Kranz cubed root law, which is not K equation, by the way. That's why I highlighted that. And Weibull calculation methods used for determining change, overpressure, exposure, and team stacking distance and tackle explosive breaching operations is not an accurate method of predicting safe areas of operations. Okay? It was identified as a significant gap in the final data produced from the Tiswick Breaching Characterization Handbook. Okay, why was that book made available for sale? And why was that allowed to continue in private businesses and our military training programs? And it's still there. That book's still for sale, and a lot of our programs are still doing that stuff. Mm-hmm. If this is what taxpayer funding discovered, why wasn't there a moratorium on this thing? How come this promise of, if you think we need to rethink and rescope this effort, then that's what we need to do? And that never happened, because I told them you weren't going to validate the damn equations. And I have to say it. You need to know this, and now's the time to say it or I'll forget. This is January 2008. Everybody knows exactly where they've been and told since January 2008, and told it's okay to stand here because of a calculated number, or come closer because you have a shield because of a calculated number, or be in a space because of a calculated number. And that's what you've been trained. You know exactly who told you to do that. Okay? 2019. I have 2 independent medical monitoring projects of explosive breaching training, showing TBI from explosive entry training. And I don't, because they won't talk to me. A lot of folks in research won't talk to me, because this message is not how they're putting stuff out. Mm-hmm. And they say unflattering things which aren't true, but they're saying that because it's just like it's reflective of business competition. If there's a competitor making you negligent or all that, well, you want to try to discredit that competitor, right? Well, the thing is, these people left a paper trail. This isn't just what I think, folks. There's a paper trail. Their words, their products. Okay, my communication with them, their responses. So You want to try to discredit me, all these people end up doing is eventually discredit themselves, because operators, when they find out the truth, okay, whose reputation now is at stake?
Right.
And
but guys, TBI from explosive entry training, and they are using the equations. They should have been eradicated in 2007. How do you answer to that? I don't have an answer. I know what I think, and I don't want to say what I think. Anyway, but you want to ask a question? Go ahead.
What you're outlining here, Chuck, is how this research starts off, and we start off with some flawed premises, and it leads into military doctrine and training, and what we're training our soldiers to use. They're then taking it overseas, both in training and in combat, and using it. And now, the next step down the line, downstream, we're seeing all these operators that have TBIs. And we have some guys who have died, and they autopsy the bodies, and we're finding that they have like 22 TBIs. It's fucking insane.
Yeah.
And you're identifying the root causes of that, Chuck, and it's really frustrating that we're still having this problem that guys are getting hurt. I remember one of the first things you told me is you have operators come to you and talk about how much it hurts to do explosive breaching.
Yeah.
And you were like, it does not need to hurt.
It doesn't need to hurt. And, okay, guys, here's reality of TBI, okay? First off, nobody should be standing where the overpressure is excessive. That is unacceptable. But we all have other possibly pre-existing conditions based on our lifestyles. Okay, why some people get injured and some don't. That's why it's a real thing. And I think the folks that are really looking at that, the ones I met are amazing. And I really think this study in that regard is going to do some amazing stuff for everybody, treatment. And man, if they can figure out a way of recovery, that would just be amazing. But I'll tell you what, it's being looked into. And to me, that's money well invested. Okay. Every effort they can. But why are we sending our people? Okay. Now, I don't know what everybody's doing. Okay. And I know it's been a mix of stuff. Some people aren't doing equations. Some people are. I don't know who's doing equations. But if you're doing equations and you're getting rocked, there's no justification for it, because all that should have been eradicated.
Right.
Custodians of some of the manuals for our services courses that have that in there, I've tried contacting, okay, and they blew me off. So you have issues with your explosive entry chapter, let's have a talk. And here's the issue, blah, 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 paraphrase, blah, 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 blah. That's a technical term that only I understand. And they blew me off. And this is how I found out they blew me off. Again, I was waiting an answer. Hey, man, we're going to talk about this. We're going to turn this around. And one of the SMEs that supports me, he's a PhD, non-vet, EOD tech, and this guy knows. He's already forgotten more stuff than I'll ever know. And to have him in the network is just amazing, and help me out understand things. And if you need to know anything about explosives, let me know. I'll connect you with Mike. Anyway, it's a different Mike. And I'm talking to Jack. He's also an SME for that committee, for that manual and the stuff they do at that activity. He was there for something else. And somehow they got in a conversation, and one of the engineers is like, can you believe this Navy guy was telling engineers that their book's wrong? He's like, what? Are you talking about some Navy guy? What? Yeah, our explosive breaching chapter in our new book. Some Navy guy's telling us that our book's wrong. He goes, Navy guy, what's his name? He tells his name. He goes, you know what? What you need to do is listen to that Navy guy.
Yeah.
But they blew me off. Okay, people don't want to be told they're wrong. Hey, what operator wants to be told they're wrong?
Right.
Okay, that's human nature. And when you're in that realm where it's your livelihood and you're wrong, and it's that vicious environment, people are going to do what they're going to do to take care of them. Okay, what we need to do is don't put them in that situation. Okay, it's not fair to you, but even though it's unintentional, we have to figure out a way to not let that happen to them. The talents are awesome. They don't understand this. It's not smarts. It's not funding. It's experience.
Right.
Operators have the experience, but the education doesn't support how to identify this. The folks in research and the vested businesses are also products of the trap. They don't understand your reality. They're going to look at you or how they're relevant within that trap because that's what makes sense to them. And none of these people, for 14 years, I've been asking them the instruments, this new project right now. Some engineer makes a smartphone. Guys, we need to come out in the city. Let me show you what this is. Why is this important? And get some firsthand experience of operator reality. And it's going to turn this around. And every time I do that, they reject it. And I have the emails. I do it in person. I have the emails. I have the rejections. So there's a paper trail. And now, I'm not finger pointing. You're all fucked up. You're not. What I'm saying to operators is we got to be the ones taking control of this. And it starts with education.
Yeah.
Well,
it's not technology. And when I say this, all the technology people flip out and they take that out of context. He's anti-technology, anti-technology. No, I'm not. I'm anti not looking at evidence that hurts someone else.
Right. Right.
I'm not anti-you. I hope all businesses succeed.
Yeah.
In fact, the one that Pressure Gauge Company, well, they talk all kind of smack about me. And I use their instruments all the time. It's an awesome product. I can make my own surrogates.
Yeah.
I can do stuff with their product that they don't even know how to do. It's because they don't understand this in reality and what it means to be important for us because they're products of the trap.
Right.
And they're not willing right now. And, I hope it would change. Maybe we could turn this thing around so damn quick. But anyway, go ahead. I'm jabbering.
You took matters into your own hands a little bit, I guess, when you wrote this book, Tactical Explosive Breaching Operations, where, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, this is your effort to correct this problem we're talking about tonight, right?
Oh, yeah. That textbook is 37 years in the making, literally written in blood. Every bit of it is about our experiences in real time. And it was a long learning curve, okay? And things weren't perfect. We had some great things and we had some bad things. So how do we correct the bad things and keep them corrected? And that's the context of the book. That particular version is for guys that don't get a chance to go through my class. And it's the organization, it's the safety, it's understanding overpressure, and it's written in a fashion, particularly for police, because they're going to go to court, criminal convictions, and their potential liabilities. They have to be able to articulate incredibly complex and scientific phenomena, detonation effects. You have to be accurate, and you have to be understandable by non-explosive breaching authorities, right, like your commanders, lawyers, judges, and juries. So it's written in that context, and I've had a lot of help, SMEs of PhDs, engineers, explosive engineers, help me, law enforcement, the FBI guys, terminologies. How do we make that simple as possible, be accurate, easy to remember, but these other people understand you. So that's the book. I call it the hazard puzzle. The hazard puzzles describe what it is and how do you apply it. That kind of stuff's in there. I stayed away from tactics, charges, those kind of things, because charge. The important things are the safety and subject matter expertise is what that book is focused on.
And could you just briefly explain what is the hazard puzzle? Because I think that's a really important part of the way forward.
There's 8 pieces. This is, and I'll explain to you how it works. Okay. The first one is never forget threat conditions. Why are you doing explosive entry? You're going after people who want to kill you, okay, and kill others. And when we get, in fact, I'll go right to this is range training. Mm-hmm. This is what's been happening. Guys don't see the obvious because it's breaching, calculate 4 PSI or half my distance. What's the obvious threat if this is an operation? Okay? It's not overpressure. It's these windows. Right? Because if they see you and you're not seeing them, okay, which none of these guys are doing that, okay, you have a problem. You can get shot. You can get shot and make an extra fortify, and now you just made it a big time mess. And this is happening. It sounds silly. This is happening These kind of things are happening all the time. Guys are getting fragged. A couple of years ago, there was here's another thing about some of these private businesses. They have these conferences. Okay, and conferences are great. Go to them. Think about learning curve. There was a special ops team was doing breaching, and we have those metal container flexible linear shape charges you hand pack with C4 and conicals. All spec ops guys have them. All the military OD guys have them, and they're like, "Hey, let's try this charge." So they pack it, and they stick the charge on the door, and because it was breaching, they stacked at the 4 psi calculated distance for incident overpressure, and 4 guys got fragged hardcore. Fortunately, no one died. The injuries were pretty severe, and guys were recovering. And that was good news. And the first thing I want to say, that guy had permission. He came to the conference. He goes, "Man, dudes, we screwed up." And the lesson is, because it was breaching, we didn't see the obvious. Okay, if we did combat demolition training, we'd have been nowhere near this thing, but it was breaching. It was breaching. We stuck that on and we didn't see the obvious. And a lot of courage for that guy to go to a conference and say, man, we messed up. I mean, I got so much respect for him and that whole team to want to help people to don't do this.
Right.
Guess what happened? About 2 or 3 years later, that same business, all right, this is the problem. There's nobody regulating this stuff. Anybody can do whatever they want. Literally, there's no oversight authority, guys. Within the services, you have a chain of command and all that, but really across the board, there's nobody tracking anything. Mm-hmm. Flexible linear shape charts. It's metal case, flexible linear shape charts. I don't know, 4 brain cells unite. It's metal case explosive. You never worked with it. We worked a lot with it. We stopped using it because we got tired of fragging ourselves. So it's basically like a mini hand grenade. So basically, they wanted to do a math class for the entire conference. Okay, this is their example math class. And this is an instructor of this private business. And they gave this out as a handout. Now, it's one of the guys in my network were there who gave it to me. So here we have a ballistic fragmentating explosive. Okay, they get to 4 psi. And it's okay to stack 7 feet away from ballistic fragmentation. Okay, when you use K equation for ballistic fragmentation, there's your K factor, 328. Okay, you're safe from ballistic fragmentation at 111, 112 feet. Uh-huh. My point is this. What was the learning curve? You're a course. First off, and this is after that study, don't do K equation. Okay?
Right.
You're not only using K equation, which you shouldn't be doing, you're telling people to stand next to explosives that are going to produce ballistic fragmentation, which the other guys did. Where's the lesson learned here? And this was given out at a conference. And then they do the same example for the internal one. It's okay to be in a room because of a calculated incident overpressure value with ballistic producing fragmentation. Gents, there is no safety oversight. This stuff is happening all the time. I know guys are learning this. Guys are seeing it. I know some things are changing, but why is there not somebody and just stop? And I've been trying to do that. And there's a project right now that could have done that. And they elected to just let it keep on going. The email said, we know what we're doing. Okay. I'm trying, guys. So I look like this. It would be great if somebody would just knock this shit off before more people were hurt. And, and reputations on their end, are affected too. Because that's a big thing for them.
Right.
And I told them that when I gave that lecture November 1, 2018, when they're manning up that TBI study, they had a work group. They had to define a plan, do all this stuff, and there was multiple work groups to find, because this is a incredibly impressive and really detailed, pretty busy project. Good things are going to come from it, except for one thing: explosive entry safety, preventing injury. And that's the only thing I'm focused on. Everything else these guys do, I have zero problem. Everything else they do for like a gun crew, artillery, everything is constant. It's a controlled environment. How do you set up your weapon? What do you training features cannot be around? where the crew is for running that weapon, and the ammunition. Everything there is constant. That's a controlled environment. In every way they understand overpressure, that's perfect for them. But there's a PhD wrote a paper back in 2017, and some of those other guys that said, oh no, because they record, then they're going on the range, and they're recording up your upper left-hand corner, and they're putting gauges on you. And his paper, the way he sees overpressure for his peers to review, he's equating your reality with overpressure with a controlled environment.
Right.
Because that's, how he sees it. Okay? You have people, they really are brilliant. They don't have the experience to be an authority on your safety, but they're being allowed to be an authority on your safety.
Right.
Okay, and this is one of his things, because this was another PowerPoint that went out on 25 March 2019 from another PhD. I mean, we talked a lot, because that instrument that they're putting on your neck, okay, because the guys that make that instrument, they're saying things behind my back that I don't know I'm doing. I'm anti-technology. I misrepresent them, and I don't. I've always thought it was a quality unit. I always thought that it's a needed unit. I use it, and they just don't want to hear. They don't understand how it works, and consequently, they want to say things that just aren't true. But this is what this PhD said, and a lot of PhDs and MDs said the same thing. Okay, the existing tools. This is what's above this image right here. On that slide, the existing tools, meaning the gauges that we're using, are relevant for research environment, but not for human monitoring. Okay, and I think the context of what he was thinking at the time, because the way the discussion was going, we never really cut what I wanted to hear. We have a lot of surrogates that are designed to replicate your body, like crash dummies. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of surrogate technology that should be getting incorporated and stuff like that. This instrument, personally, I think it can be used that way. But there's a lot of PhDs that don't think that unit should be for medical monitoring. Mm-hmm. Okay? They're going to figure that one out. I personally don't see an issue with it if you do it right, if you place it right. And what I had a concept for them, besides going out in the city so they all understood your reality from firsthand experience, is I wanted to show them how to set up surrogates. Because each urban detonation, it's its own separate reality.
Right.
And I wanted to show them how I set up surrogates and get everybody's feedback. Because we can, with the surrogates, where you know how to position, and then you set, because I already do that. I already know where to position the guys. Okay? External, there's going to be times external, there's nothing there. 4 PSI is fine, even in an urban environment. It's not always something there. The ratio for thousands of documented detonations is around 75%. Something else is there that calculated number is irrelevant. Mm-hmm. Whether it's an amplification environment, a shockwave thing, the windows, threat conditions, they can see you, those kind of ballistic stuff. Something else is there that you need to reposition. It's not safe to be there. And the way the training culture is punch in this number, stand right here. And that won't go away. And that's the issue. It's already been proven it should be even be happening. Anyway, I don't know exactly what guys are doing, and I don't know their medical history. I will tell you what, guys, I'm in my 60s. I've been doing this 37 years, and I've never displayed a symptom of TBI. Mm-hmm. Okay, now that doesn't mean next year I won't, because I don't know what's in the future for me. Because I did what I did, like you all did. Everybody's done what they've done. When it's your turn, see, for a lot of guys, if it's mild, it may not show up till later in life. Mm-hmm. And when it's later in life, it could be misdiagnosed as something else.
Right.
And they're working on that stuff too, and they do want to get recordings in your medical record, which I think is awesome. But the way things have been up to now, and the way they've been misrepresenting instrument, the value of an instrument, is my concern. Because how effective is that going to be? I hope. See, I told them a lot of stuff. Okay, let me give an example, because I know things are turning around, even though they won't give me credit. Let me do a quick one here. Okay, that overpressure that one overpressure company had a new product brochure that says you can map your environment. Okay, and right after I lectured to that TBI group, it was the November 1st and 2nd, and within a week of being home, I don't know how I found it or someone sent it to me. There's a graphic of a hallway with 10 instruments in it. And their literature says, oh, you can map your environment for the purpose of you can stand in there. So I sent an email to that whole work group about that. And I will tell you what I'll cut it down. So I'm not going to show you the graphic, okay, but it's a hallway and there's 10 instruments. Mm-hmm. The illustration along with the written claim that the system can, and this is to that whole TBI group. There's over 100 people that copied this because it's still a work group. Saying the system can map your environment at face is not true at face value. In fact, it's reckless and dangerous to imply a war fighter may stage in a hallway. This may seem logical in theory from detonations performed, but I must say again, it is impossible to identify the variety of produced hazards with overpressure recording sensors. First, each detonation is its own separate reality, then depicted as in the illustration or hallway thing. Because each time you go in a hallway, everything changes. How many different hallways are there?
Right.
You do a couple of detonations. Okay, a hallway, standing there. Every detonation is going to be different. There's going to be so many different things that when you don't do that anyway. What this is another version of that Weibull equation, just using instrumentation.
Right.
Why are you telling someone they can be somewhere that's not safe? You don't have the first-hand experience. I already told you the stuff doesn't work. And the individual that did this was part of this, is a PhD with one of our medical research activities. He's one of those guys that's coming out on the ranges and putting gauges on you.
Right.
I'll guarantee you know who he is if he put gauges on you. 2 years prior to this, he told me he was working this project with this product manufacturer. And I tried, whoa, what are you doing, man? You're going to set guys up getting hurt. You're not going to get amplified overpressure. You don't have the instruments. Don't do that. You're going to miss stuff. I'm going to show you what I was going. I'll show you an illustration. All the other stuff I show you that hallway, all the other crap that's non-overpressure behavior, and he just kind of blew me up. He never allowed me to complete what I was trying to say. He just kind of, it wasn't like a blow off. I never got an answer. What are you doing? He never would answer. 2 years later, I see this thing. I'm like, you got to be fucking shitting me, man. Actually, I didn't say that. I said, wow, I can't believe they did that. Again, I'm pointing it out. This is irresponsible marketing. Okay? It's all this is marketing. You cannot tell an operator to do this because these guys don't know. Okay, I'll just cut it off right there. I think I got the point, but let me give you a visual. The sensor
Chuck,
collector size.
I remember. One thing I wanted to point out. Well, I'll let you finish. Is you told me that these PhDs come up with these equations about where you can place assaulters inside the structure, but they will never ever go and do it themselves.
Yeah, I was going to say you need to stick them in the stack so they can go test the theories.
Oh no, and it's all these people in research. All these people telling you what you need to do will not validate it with their body. And I've been saying this to them for years. We have to go out. Let me show you how it works for your body. So you have the first-hand experience. No one should ever be allowed to tell an operator where they can stand, no matter what they think they have, whether it's technology or whatever, until you validate that with your body. In fact, that's why I said in this email to that crew, that whole crew. I want every one of you to think that that's a good idea. You set that up 25 times and everybody go in there 25 times, and I'll guarantee you won't make it to that number. And now you'll know what I'm trying to tell you. Of course, that was like blown off, right?
And if they won't do it, they need to sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up. Honestly.
Well,
like straight up.
For too long, it's been too flawed tasking. Unfortunately, that whole thing, I feel like it's so entrenched, and it just, because I really don't know what to do. They won't do it.
Yeah.
Okay. I have that in email. I have the rejections.
Yeah.
I've explained this. They ask me to come talk to them. When I talk to them, I don't tell them what they want to hear. It's the impression I get. And it's like, oh, it's the impression I get.
Right.
Okay. Nobody should be telling an operator what to do. And this is an audio recording. So guys, we need to do this, but guess what? You don't have to, because what? It's already been done. You're looking at them.
Right.
No TBI yet, hopefully.
Yeah.
It's already been done. Okay, you don't want to do it. Allow me to do it.
Yeah.
Let me turn this around for the operators. Oh, no, we know what we're doing. I have the email. We know what we're doing. Okay.
Well, I mean, I was going to say that, you showed that example of the guys on the range, and then going back to the video of the guy in the hallway, it feels like you could just have a sound engineer look at that, just a different type of wave and go, hey, does this testing environment reflect this? Can you use the same equations for sound? And they'd be like, no, of course not. That's dumb.
You know what? A sound wave is not supersonic. It's a wave, just not supersonic speed. Overpressure is a shock wave because it's traveling at supersonic speed. But this is another medical activity, this diagram. Okay, I forgot to tell you. That email, when I saw that was November, where was it? November 17th, 2018, okay? I lost my thought. On March 25th, I know I'm missing. All right, this is what the people in the product industry say. There is some things being said about me. This is one of the things they say, and it's in writing. No one suggests that the instrument readings inside a hall room represent the entire volume. Rather, we all agree it represents the pressure at the given point of the room. This is a straw man argument. And I'll tell you what, that is not true. Because prior to November 17th, 2018, that's exactly what they were teaching. Uh-huh. That's exactly what they were advertising. And that's exactly what they were doing with all their instrumentations. They're telling you, it's giving you information that it's debatable. It's not like that. Why can't we have a discussion about this? Okay, show me where I'm wrong. Show me where I'm wrong. Okay, I'll change my whole program. Right. Sit down and show me, please. Peer review my stuff. Let's go out in the urban environment. Show me where I'm wrong. Because evidence is showing. And okay, guys, I'm not just making this shit up. Okay, this has been going on for decades. I have peer review of so many different SME resumes looking at this stuff. Federal law enforcement in the ATF. The guys that study the agents. I mean, and guys with the education, multiple PhDs, engineers, and most importantly, the operators. What do you feel, and how is this correct and stuff? Okay. So this is just in me sitting in a closet. Gee, what can I do today? Let me see if I can't make someone angry. This is evidence. Right. Evidence worth of a discussion at a minimum. Are we missing something? At a minimum, why can't we sit down and do this? Nobody wants to do that. Right. And I have my reasons. I don't know why. I'm not going to say. But that's simply not true. It wasn't until that email that changed. And you know what, guys? That's what it took for these assholes, that's what it took for these people to finally stop doing at least something that's based on evidence. And to act like you knew that all along is simply not true.
Chuck, I'm gonna ask for your final thoughts on this topic in just a moment. I just want to let all the folks out there watching us, please get your questions in for Chuck if you have any. And please remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please give us a little thumbs up or thumbs down if you think we suck. We won't take it personally. Leave us some comments. Let us know how you think we're doing. And down in the description, you'll find a link to the merch for the for the channel, and you'll also find a link to our Patreon page if you're interested in supporting the channel. And you'll get access to our bonus segments as well.
And Chuck, where can they find your book? For those who are interested in pursuing this deeper, for our professionals and maybe non-professionals alike who are just interested.
Okay, hey guys, this is my email address. Best way to contact me, because sometimes com is hit or miss for me with some of the things I've going on.
It's for people who are listening to the podcast. It's CJOCONNOR98@gmail.com.
Yeah, if anyone's interested in getting purchasing textbook, just send me an email and I'll give you all the info. That'd be great. I'm here for operators. I have a lot of information I prepared of problems, because there's a lot of other things too. Okay, like with our references and stuff like that, to help understand where are the holes, so you can fill in the holes. Everything's been vetted. Everything's been validated. Okay, but I want to say this, guys. No one knows it all, and we, all of us together, your experiences, some other information that can help fill in gaps. I want to make you safe.
Yeah.
I want how the hazard puzzle works. I want you guys to be safe. First and foremost, safe. Let's stop the injuries. Okay, and then I wish it wasn't this way. I wish it would come the other way around. But let's get everybody safe. First and foremost, talk to you have to if you want. You guys, we can communicate. If you want that stuff, to send me an email. I'll send you all the info. If you want me to talk with folks, your commander, stuff like that, talk to them if you think you need to or if you want to. And I'm available. I'll make myself available because we have to take the lead on this. Mm-hmm. And honestly, guys, we don't want anyone to be set up for failure. It's happening. It's unintentional, but it's really bad for everyone. It's been bad enough. And operators, in my opinion now, are the ones who have to take the lead on this. Mm-hmm. And let's turn this around, and then let's take care of the guys, and let's get them back to what they're good at doing. Okay, this is the one thing they don't do. And I don't know why it's that hard. And I don't know what to say anymore to an adult. Say, come on, let's talk about this stuff. Show me where I'm wrong, please. I don't know. I know this. Evidence right now is showing there's a better way.
Right.
Okay. Compared to what is happening right now.
And there should be that level of curiosity for the benefit of the troops. There should be that level of, okay, what if we're wrong, right? Like, how do we test this? But like you say, when it comes to research, and we don't just see it here, we see it in the pharmaceutical industry, we see it everywhere else. Yeah. Research is paid for and sponsored generally by companies who have an investment in the end result. And so it's hard to get, it's difficult sometimes to get, research that's open-minded.
No, that's spot on, Dave. And actually exactly the point I wanted to get into, the final thought on this, is that operator culture, soldier culture, is that when our superiors come to us and they give us data, they give us training, they are the subject matter expert. That is literally the term, the SME on this subject.
Yep, SME.
We assume that all of that data, that all of that training has gone through a rigorous vetting process, that it is legit, that it is all good to go, that there is some eye in the sky, higher power that has gone over all of it and made sure that it is appropriate for us to use. It's just part of being in the military. The people who are higher ranking than you have done their due diligence and they're giving you vetted information. But what we have seen, if Chuck's presentation and what we have seen, independent of anything Chuck has said tonight, all the TBIs that guys are getting out in the field, we've seen, no, actually there is a flaw in the training and in the data that we're being given. So for all of the guys out there, whether they're in a soft unit or a conventional unit, it's time to not question. I don't mean to undermine any specific command. It's just we need to start questioning the type of training and the type of tactics, techniques, and procedures that we're using in the field, because guys are getting hurt. They're getting TPIs. There may be other options out there. Right. There may be alternatives that will minimize. Maybe not. Probably, we're never going to completely.
We're never going to. Because again, our lifestyles, guys. What's going to have in our brains the stuff we do.
Right.
Yeah. there's an assumption that everything's been vetted before it comes to you, and that's not really true. The evidence shows it's true. The evidence also shows that it's things that have been proven not to be good are still allowed. That makes no sense. They're still being allowed. And I really don't know what everybody's doing, because I do know different folks are doing different stuff. Mm-hmm. My concern is the misuse of equations. Okay. That right now is a blurring one, because why is that anybody's literature anywhere, in anyone's program anywhere after what they discovered? Right. And it still is. Right. And the people who have that don't want to talk about it. They don't want to. They haven't given us anything better than nothing. Well, so they can't give us anything better than nothing because they don't know how to. Right. Hey guys, first off, technology is not going to fix this. Okay, and technology people freak out every time I say that, and they always take this out of context. What's going to change this is education. Right. How do I identify each detonation through the hazard puzzle where not to be? Right. That's what's going to make things safer. It's already bad enough you're going to go get in a gun battle. Shit. Why do you have to go through getting hurt to go get in your gun battle? Because of this kind of stuff, and it's not technology. Okay, real quick, I'm sorry, guys. I'll show you what I mean. Where's it? Where's my... Yeah, I'm going too fast. Here we go. These guys, they're being monitored by that PhD at that medical activity and his staff, right? They're too close. Wall charts, 2.5 pounds of composition C4. These guys are way too close to the charge because you misuse the K equation. You have these guys watching them. Okay, they get a recording. Okay, it doesn't matter what that recording says. That could be the most perfect fucking instrument in the world. Okay, so what? They're too damn close. The technology or new technology isn't going to fix this. Yeah. It's the training and the procedures, not technology. And you have a guy watching this who doesn't understand the danger here. Right. If he's an authority on the safety and his staff, like they imply, then why did you watch these guys 4 years, thousands of operators, collecting thousands of recordings, is what he says. Why did you watch these people hurt themselves? Because this is after 2014. Back in 2008, they knew they shouldn't be doing this. Right. If you're an authority on safety, you should. Why are you allowing this? Right. And not once, we're talking years. Right. That's a legitimate question. When I try to ask that and I point that out, there's no discussion. Sure. They're tasking the talent. They're not being tasked right. Right. They shouldn't have this task. One is already figured out. They should be tasked for this. It's not a good use of their talent. And all right, go ahead. I'll shut up.
The challenge of this is because a lot of times the damage, it goes undetected, right? Like it's
exactly.
If these guys were getting broken legs from the overpressure,
they're eating missile fragments,
right? You'd be able to say, look, all these guys got a broken legs when they're standing this close. But the problem is with the TBI, with the overpressure, the damage over time, it may not come out for years later. No. And it also has a tendency to get misdiagnosed, right?
It gets misdiagnosed, yeah.
It'll get diagnosed.
And you know what? They know that.
Yeah.
The people doing that project right now, they're well aware of that. And I tell you what, some of these guys, even on that staff, when I talk to them, how they interviewing patients, stuff like that, I'm like, these are really smart people.
Right.
They're not, the talents are not being used right.
Right.
None of these guys should be an authority on safety. They don't have the experience.
Right.
Because the other things that they're doing is just fucking perfect. And I'm like, wow, you guys, I was impressed. But leave this alone. Come on. Why can't we leave this alone? It's already figured out. I'll take the lead.
Yeah.
Give me some reps. We'll turn this around. And then we can better test you guys so everybody wins. I'll tell you guys, because I've worked in research, I have the operator's perspective. Yeah, should it be happening? Absolutely not. And then I think everyone can see possibly what really are motivations here. I'm not going to say, I think it's obvious, is when I talk to operators, they say the same thing every time. But because I worked in research, we cannot set them up for failure. Right. And failure in their term is catastrophic. Like it's different, but it's just as catastrophic to them as it is for us. You know, I don't want us doing that to them, even unintentionally.
Right.
Okay. And this is so easy to turn around, but I can't find somebody who wants to talk about it. Again, this is evidence, guys. This isn't, I'm just making this up. I saw this episode of some Scooby-Doo show, and wow, that was pretty cool.
Right.
No, it's 37 years, and yeah. I have no TBI. And that says something, guys. It says something. Right. Something's wrong. Sure. And the way we're doing this, it isn't working. Okay.
I got one last question for the viewer sure. here. And actually, this is a very good question. Jake asks, what is the risk of shooting an M4 equivalent rifle repeatedly, given that they trip overpressure sensors? What about larger calibers, indoors versus outdoors?
No, I really don't know how to answer that because I've never used instrumentation under those conditions. You know, I know, and Jack and I were kind of talking about that earlier, some other comments from the article, and I really have no experience with that, guys. I wish I had an answer.
I
think that is a good question because yeah. I don't know why, but it's happening because another guy had that comment too. But I've never experienced it because the way I use the instrumentation is related to explosive entry, and I've never been in that situation with the sensors and the firearms.
And I think we all agree. Great question right there. That's someone's PhD dissertation. If someone out there wants to jump on that yeah. and do some additional research on that.
Yeah, you know, and someone might know that. You know, hey guys, I'll tell you what. If I don't know something, you know, I think I learned a lot, and I learned slow and I learned painfully. But if I don't know something, I'm gonna be honest with you. And if it's something I don't know, I have a pretty awesome network. And for reach out for answers, connect you guys or represent you guys, whatever you want. And I think we all do. But literally that question, I absolutely know. I don't know who to go to for that one. I mean, because I've never, until that was in your article, I never even considered that would even be an issue or anything like that. So I would have absolutely no idea even to reach out to. Yeah.
Man,
that's a good question.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's another further matter for additional research. It's just frustrating sometimes to see how slow military culture, or perhaps I don't have any experience in law enforcement, but law enforcement culture perhaps, how slowly it changes, and sometimes it takes 20 years to reverse the course of the ship. Yeah. But hopefully conversations like this kind of get that going and get people thinking about it and talking about it.
I'm thinking, you know, there's going to be people, because they already say things, you know, behind my back. Every one of these people that say stuff behind my back, I've already tried to talk to them in a reasonable fashion, professional, and they make up things that aren't true. They say I misrepresent things. They say I'm anti-technology. The only people that say this stuff are people who have something to sell.
Right.
The only people ever not liked anything I said over the last 20 years are people who are selling something.
Right.
And they're selling something you don't need, like they advertise. Because guys, salesmen have to sell something, or they don't have a job. Okay, they have to sell something whether you need it or not. Okay, that's not a criticism. That's business, or they don't have a job. So you can't fault that. What I want to help guys understand is, how do I see through what that guy's trying to tell me? Because if I have a frame of reference, then it could sound good. Because that happened to us. We bought a bunch of stuff based on how it was perceived to us through sales. Okay, and it turned out, okay, all right, we got burnt. We were lucky because we could absorb it with our budget. But man, you have a limited budget. You can't afford that crap.
Right.
You can't afford it all. And research is a business. That's why I'm saying that. These guys have to sell something, and it's vicious. And I tell you what, I really feel, and you know, I don't know how it sounds. I feel for these guys. We have to figure out a way, because they can't see it. they're a victim of the trap like you guys are. They're just as much of a victim for their world as operators are.
Yeah.
And they can't see that because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in their artificial reality. And I'll never stop trying. I've always said I'll never stop trying to talk to someone. Come on. This is not hard. And I'll never stop inviting them out into the city, because I'll tell you, everybody's ever done that goes, you can't understand this intellectually, compared to the experience. Okay, and everyone knows exactly what that's like. Okay, I'm a professional or you watch a boxing match, hey, that guy's face is all punched up, that hurts. When it's your face, that's a whole different experience.
Right.
So, I wish we start with operators. Let's give the operators the information. You'll know what to do. You already have the experience.
Right.
You already know how you feel. I can show you how to not feel that way and add that to your threat conditions, because you got the shit rocked out of you, right, and have to shake that off. And again, I don't know what everybody's doing, and you can still get injured even if you're not using the equation. We got this operation, there's no guarantees. We know that.
Right.
But to be allowed to use something proven it's dangerous since January 2008, a reference still for sale. The last time I checked, it was November. It was still for sale last year. Who do you go to? I've been trying.
This has really been like a master class in explosive breaching right here tonight. And I think this is like super important information to put out to people.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you, Chuck.
And look, we can definitely empathize and agree with your frustration that operators and soldiers, people are out there putting their life on the line in a hostile environment and then subjecting themselves to secondary dangers that they're not even aware of because the research isn't accurate and nobody's doing anything to change that. Like, the mission itself is tough enough. Why inflict additional harm and disability on these people? And
Chuck, can I borrow you for just like another 15 minutes to do this segment? Okay, thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
So guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you'll spread this message around. If you know anyone who's in the military, who's in special operations, who's in law enforcement that works around explosives, I hope you'll share this video or this podcast with them and kind of spread Chuck's message around. Next week, we're going to have Danny Colson on the show. He is the founder of the FBI's hostage rescue team. So the actual guy who started up HRT. So we're very excited to have him. We'll be talking to him next Friday. And with that, I think that's a show.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
we really appreciate your time.
Hey, reach out if I can help anytime, guys.
Yeah, sure.
I'll do everything I can to help you.